Hello, hello. Ron Callis here with another episode of Automation Unplugged. Today is Wednesday, May 27th, 2020. Hopefully, you are making out well here in quarantine life. I know things are a little bit crazy still for all of us. I know if you were to watch all of these videos, you see that I'm growing quite the mane here. So I'm super ready to get to my barber and get my hair cut. So hopefully that's politically correct here sooner than later. Uh, but anyway, I did want to mention for you business owners and operators out there, I'm curious, and I'd love you to type into the chat. What are some of the things that you are doing to help your team through this challenging time in business? And I thought I would share with you just real quickly a couple of the things that we're doing at One Firefly. So one of the best things that we can do as leaders within our organizations is to keep an open dialogue with your team, letting them know the good news, the bad news. Maybe there's news you don't have answers to yet, but just sharing that openly and transparently. So at One Firefly, we actually have added a weekly town hall. Thankfully, the news has been quite positive for the last several months. Didn't know that would be the case, but we've stayed nicely busy at One Firefly. Sadly, we have lost a few clients, but we've actually gained far more than we've lost. The other thing that we're doing is we added many of my team, and probably many of you are stuck more in your homes these days than you have been maybe ever. And so something we've done at One Firefly is we added a weekly, actually I want to say it's bi-weekly, but we added trivia. So we actually all log in, everyone from around the country, and we have a whole system set up, and Tina and Allison from our team run it, and we do trivia. And there's teams, and we've actually decided to keep the teams through this whole quarantine period, and we have 2 rounds of trivia, and we do it at the end of the day. We do it on Thursdays, and it's open bar, so everyone brings their wine or their beer or their cocktail or their water, whatever they want to drink, and we have fun. And there's no work. There's just play and fellowship. And I know I've enjoyed it a lot, and I've heard some pretty good feedback from my team. So I'm curious if you guys are doing something out there for your teams to help them get through these times. What are those things? Drop it into the comments. And after the show, I'll be sure to drop in there and read all of those and reply. Now on to our guest. Today we have, we're going to be interviewing guest number 122. So this is show 122 of Automation Unplugged. And my guest is Ariel Gutierrez. He's the president at Polaris Controls, and he's here based in Miami. We're going to talk about who he is and his business and how things are going for them. So let's go ahead. Without further ado, let's bring in Ariel. Ariel, how are you, sir?
Good morning, Mr. Ron Callis. How are you?
I am. So I had to check my clock. I was like, shoot, is it morning? I don't know. Days blend into weeks and morning into night. So there aren't many barriers these days. But yeah, it is almost 1:00. So it's more. So Ariel, where are you coming to us from?
I live in Miami, Florida. Our company is headquartered here in the Doral area, which is on the western part of Miami, close to the airport and the turnpike.
Awesome. And I want to say a mutual friend of ours, Thomas Wing. I don't know if you know Thomas. He's from Panama, but he's a frequent listener. And he goes, Ron and saludos. Sorry, my Spanish is terrible. Saludos to Ariel. and all the Polaris Controls Latin America crew. Good to have them on the show. Great team and great people. So
Thanks,
that's
Tomas. Tomas is a highly respected client of ours. We see him a lot when we travel, trade shows. He comes to our trainings a lot, so he does a lot for the industry down in Panama. So, hola, Tomas, ¿cómo estás?
¿Cómo estás? See, that was pretty good, right?
There you go.
Not bad,
Certainly
not
my.
bad.
That's right.
So, Arielle, just for our listeners that may not know you, I always like to start out the show with kind of who are you? So maybe give us your background. You and I have known each other for, I want to say, going on 20 years.
That's right.
And it means, you know what that means? It means we're getting old. I think
That's right.
But I still feel young, so I'm not.
It's not old. It's experienced. Experience is the new term.
There you go. We are 20 years experienced, and or maybe many more years than that. And but yeah, tell our audience about yourself and kind of what brings you forward to Polaris Controls today.
Well, it's an interesting story. I'm actually a biomedical engineer. That's what I studied in as an undergrad at RPI in Troy, New York. I worked on some interesting projects for the DoD while I was there, for power supplies for tracking devices, which was an interesting subject. But from there, I worked for Lutron as an employee for Lutron for about 5 years. From 98, I started there in February 98. I worked for them in the Latin American and training departments, and I had a stint in their Florida residential sales department as well. That's where I met you.
That's
you
right.
and I worked together in the Florida market for a while. I actually left Lutron and started a business in land development. Our first company was a company that would raise capital for investors. Or investors would, put in money into projects, and we returned all the money plus profit to them. We did very well for a number of years, and then in 2007 and 2008, the construction industry in the United States basically collapsed, and so that was a change of scope for us. But it was good. It was a good learning experience for me and for my wife. I actually met my wife and some of the people that work within Polaris in our graduate school. We did a master's in construction management that we started. I started there. I think it was in 2003 or 2002 is when I started the master's. I completed in 2004. Started a construction business, which was my second business. It's called IDG Construction. It's a licensed general contractor in Florida. That business is ongoing. I'm the qualifier for that business. And that was doing the project management for the projects that we were raising capital for. So that was good. We were doing our own projects for a while, and then the economy hit.
I think 08, 09, and 10 hit many of us quite hard.
Yes, it was a very difficult. It was a very difficult year. I knew it was coming though. In 2007, I remember we were closing. We built some houses. We built I'd say about 70 houses in Miami, and on one of the houses, one of the closings, the buyer came. It was a $500,000 house. This particular buyer, I'm not sure he was qualified for that kind of loan.
That was back when you could get a loan just by stating your income. You didn't actually have to show any paperwork.
That's right. So he came out of the loan with a second mortgage on the property as well and $30,000 in his pocket. So he put no money down at the closing, came out with $30,000, and I was like, something is seriously wrong with this. And sure enough, 4 months after that, that's when all the Lehman Brothers stuff happened. That's when the construction bubble came. And it was a difficult ride. 2008, 2009 was a difficult ride. Went to work for Honeywell. Worked for Honeywell a little bit under a year. Great company. I personally hated what I was doing there, but it was a good company to work for. Lots of learning there. But I wanted to do something different. My wife was pregnant, and Honeywell wanted us to move to Virginia, and I was still winding down all the construction projects in Miami. So I told to my wife, well, why don't we start a business? And the initial stages of that business was we knocked on Lutron's door again to see if they needed some help with their trainings in Spanish, because that's what I knew how to do well. And that conversation turned into, why don't you become manufacturers reps? And we put together a business plan in about 2 months. I looked for a company name because I didn't have any uh, company related to that field. I love sailing and boats and navigation, and Polaris is a North Star. And we were going to be representing a controls company for lighting control. And also the domain name was available. So
That's the magic right there. When the
that's right.
domain's available, that's the ringing endorsement for your new name.
Exactly. Exactly. So my wife and I came up with the name Polaris Controls, registered the domain name with GoDaddy, and the rest is history. We started that business in 2009. It's 11 years old now. It
Wow.
was with one manufacturer, which was Lutron, my wife and I, and we were reps only for the Caribbean and certain islands in the Caribbean, not the entire Caribbean. And so little by little, we started adding lines. As we added lines, we I couldn't divide myself into so many bits, travel wise. So that's when we hired one of our company's team members, which is Manfredo. Manfredo started with us covering Central America, and I would focus on the Caribbean. But then we needed more lines because with one line and three people, we couldn't really
More
do it.
people need more revenue.
That's right. So and that's how we started. So today, Polaris is 10 people strong.
Wow.
We have operations in Mexico. There's two people in Mexico. We have an office in Mexico City, in Guatemala, in Bogota, Colombia, in San Juan, Puerto Rico, in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, and here in Miami. And we focused in four different verticals. One of them being automation, the other one being lighting, as in lighting manufacturers, lamps and lighting fixtures. Um, the other one on the Pro AV side. And lastly, and more importantly, the one on audio and video. So we're reps for multiple audio and video companies, audio video distribution, and so that's what we do. We're in four different categories throughout Latin America and the Caribbean. We don't do anything domestically.
So okay, so you live in Miami, but
Yep,
all of your territories are other countries
correct.
throughout the Caribbean or Central America and South America, correct?
Correct. Miami's has always been, and more so these days, kind of like a little capital of
I
Latin
was going to
America.
say Miami is the capital of South America.
That's right. So
Is it not?
everyone likes to come here. Miami's become a big destination in the last 15 years. I remember when I first moved to Miami about 22 years ago now. This was a big city, but it wasn't like a New York or a LA or anything like that. And slowly but surely, here we are. It's a big city now, with a lot of people from Latin America coming here to establish themselves with business and families and all that. So it's become a great city.
Some of the what are some of the bigger names? I know you love all of your brands the same, but
Mhm.
what are some of the bigger names that some of the folks listening will know that you represent?
So we're reps for Lutron. That's the first line that we had, and we will eternally be grateful for the opportunity with Lutron, because it was a difficult time in the world's history. We have Sonance, which has been a key line for us. The folks at Sonance have been wonderful to work with. Gave us an enormous boost with the responsibility that we have, because we do manage Sonance for everywhere in Latin America, from Mexico all the way to Argentina and all of the
Wow. So
Caribbean.
you have Sonance for the entire continent.
That's correct. That's correct.
Wow.
So that's a great line, great people there, great opportunities, great product. I mean, I can't really say enough about Sonance. We have Savant for Latin America and the Caribbean, except Mexico and Brazil. In Brazil, they have a very strong distributor. It's Audio Gene, and they've done a really good job with Savant in Brazil. So good people. So those are the main ones. Then on the lighting side, we have Lucifer Lighting is one. DMF Lighting is another one. DMF and Lucifer have both been very involved in CDA lately, because they're trying to develop CDA side for
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of
integrators.
DMF at
Yep.
I'm in a couple of buying we at One Firefly are in a couple of buying groups, and I know I've been seeing DMF, Michael and team.
Yep.
Wait a second. There's another Lutron connection over
Andy
at DMF,
Wakefield.
isn't there?
That's right.
Andy, yeah.
Andy Wakefield is there.
I see a common thread through a lot of these brands you're mentioning here.
It's true. I'll tell you that Lutron does provide great training for folks, for on the sales and operations side, and there is a lot of ex Lutron people in this industry, because they've done a really good job in training all of us. So
yeah, I agree.
It's a good company.
It's the best training. Overall. I mean, I've said this many times on this podcast. Even I think my career start at Lutron, I couldn't have asked for a better place to start.
Absolutely.
In terms of building a strong foundation.
That's right.
And, as you said, you can take your years at Lutron and then just look across the industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
At all of these movers and shakers, and they originated in many cases at Lutron.
Yeah, more than three manufacturers that we're reps for started because of some kind of Lutron connection. Lucifer's Lighting started from there. Sonance obviously started from there. DMF started from there. So it's it was a great school for me. I still learn something new every day from them. So it's good company.
Now you mentioned Savant, and there was news that broke. I want to say it broke a few hours ago. Correct. And Savant just acquired GE Lighting.
That is a huge step for Savant. And it's not just
what do you think this means? Yeah, I mean, what does it mean?
I think it means that Savant obviously is interested in becoming more and more front row with a lighting side. The GE Lighting acquisition is not only for the automation side of things; it's also for the lamp side of things. I don't know if you know this, but GE Lighting makes up 40% of the lighting brands in retail locations. So you can go to like a Home Depot, and a lot of the lamps that are available in Home Depot are GE Lighting lamps. So this allows, in my opinion, Savant some room to negotiate better deals with manufacturers, because it's a much stronger name. It also gives Savant a strength that in some sales opportunities, if you take a company like Crestron or Lutron that have been in this industry for 40 plus years, and you compare with Savant that only started in the early 2000s, it gives a strength that it didn't have before.
GE Lighting, Thomas Edison, 130 Correct. Years ago. I mean, it doesn't get more OG than that.
700 employees plus. I mean, it's a huge deal. It's a huge deal for Savant. I think they can leverage a lot of what they've been doing with the lighting side with that, and it's going to be great. I think it's a great acquisition for them, and it shows you how forward thinking Savant is. They call Bob Madonna the guy that can look around corners, and I agree. This acquisition is a good acquisition for them.
Well, just to dive a little bit deeper, and I don't know if you know this answer or if it's speculation, but I only know enough to be dangerous. So I'm putting that out there on the record. But I know that the USA, am I going to get it right? USAI,
Mm-hmm.
the
USAI.
fixtures that Savant has been partnering and been selling. Does it change that equation at all, to your knowledge? Or
I
is
don't
that
think.
public, or is that determined yet as
No,
to
no, no,
what
no.
that means?
I don't know what that means. It could not. I mean, USAI doesn't manufacture lamps. They manufacture, a fixture with a housing with an LED engine. So it's a different type of lighting fixture altogether. It may change it. It may not. It may be for
We
the
have some
test.
speculation in the chat feed here, so
I'm sure there
let's
is.
put some of the speculation up on the screen. Nelson Vega, he says they're going to try and develop a Ketra style fixture and compete at the highest of fixture levels.
Could be. Could be.
That's a good theory. I like it. And then what do we have? We have Juan Pablo Garcia Guerrera, and he says they have a partnership with USAI Lighting, so I believe they have this portion.
Yeah.
There we go. And then Nelson says, I can't imagine they acquired GE to grab the average consumer.
Well,
I don't
you'd
know.
be surprised.
Maybe.
The average consumer.
I mean, I grew up with that GE on the A lamp, the Edison lamps. Now I guess as Arielle and I said a moment ago, we're now experienced. So some of the younger
That's
listeners are going to go, what are you talking about? The GE on the lamp you'd screw in. All they've known is, LED light bulbs. But
well, the thing with the LED, the consumer sales with the GE, I mean, just look at the amount of cash that will start coming in through Home Depot sales, for example, and electrical distributor sales, and those are channels that Savant didn't have, and now they're going to have this steady income that's not as dependent on high-end residential or commercial projects as it has been before. So who knows?
Yeah, no, it's going to be fun. By the way, we have Ariel, or not Ariel, but we have Angel, and he goes, or Angel, and he says, welcome, Ariel. Saludos from Mexico.
Saludos, Ángel. ¿Cómo estás?
Okay.
Nelson and I go back too. I like Nelson a lot. He works at Sound Components. Great guy. Very knowledgeable. Funny as hell. I go to Nelson. He's my go-to guy for all things Cuban food in Miami, Florida. So
where is Nelson at now? Nelson, drop in the comments here. Where are you at these days? Is he still at Sound Components?
I think he is. The last time I spoke to him, which was a couple months ago, he was. He probably still is. Great guy. If you want to get good Cuban food anywhere in Miami or Fort Lauderdale, because he's a man
about town. He knows
his
Cuban food in South Florida.
Right. Exactly. So you can ask Nelson. Nelson is still at Sound Components. You see?
That is cool. Nelson, tell Bill. I think Bill's still running that place, right? Does that sound right? All right. I heard a yes, sir. All right. Tell Bill I said hello. I haven't talked to Bill in many, many moons. Arielle, how's business, man? I know my wife is from Brazil, and we're watching the news, and Brazil is getting pummeled right now. So that's a data point that I have that's close to home. What's happening throughout the Caribbean and in Central and South America in the custom integration business?
Lots of places are in lockdown. Mexico's in lockdown. Brazil is in lockdown. Ecuador, Guatemala, it goes day by day, mostly in lockdown too. A lot of the islands are in lockdown. They've only started easing things up in Puerto Rico this past week. Actually, last week it's really when it started. I apologize, the landscape people.
Am I hearing the landscape guy that you warned me about? Is he outside the door
yes,
or the window?
Now there's 3 leaf blowers right in front of my door. So this only happens when I have to do this.
It only happens when you're live in
it's incredible.
Facebook Live or a webinar training.
There's three leaf blowers. Incredible.
That's hilarious.
They'll leave in short time.
Yeah, no worries.
Um, I would say, and then there's places like the British Virgin Islands. The British Virgin Islands have had zero. I apologize.
That's all right. I'm pretty sure it'll end soon. Here, I'll pay attention to the comments here for a second while we
Yes.
wait for the sound. Lou Wing says that Panama is opening too. Lou, drop into the comments, man. Let us know what's going on in Panama. Are you able to get out and do projects yet? Is it appropriate or deemed the responsible thing to do by your local government or your federal government? I know here in the U.S., it depends on the state and even sometimes the city as
That's
to
right.
whether you're simply allowed to go out and do business.
Even like Miami. So Miami, a lot of people don't know this, but Miami is two things. There's Miami-Dade County, which is comprised of different cities, and then there's the city of Miami. So within Miami-Dade County, different cities have different stipulations. So there's things that you can do in Doral that you can't do in Hialeah. There's things in Hialeah that you can't do in Coral Gables, and so on and so forth. So it, it's it's changing every day. Um, let's see what Lewing says. Panama is opening too. Not at the moment. Maybe in the next 2 weeks we'll be able to. So yeah, there's still a lot of places in lockdown. Um,
What?
business wise,
Yeah.
you
What is it
asked.
meant for business? I mean, I can imagine I mean, there's no way to slice it. It's got to be terribly challenging.
It's challenging for the dealers. It's challenging for the end users as well because they can't leave their houses. From a health perspective, it's challenging too. From an economical perspective, it's challenging as well, and not just because business is stopped. That's one part of it. The other part of it is that the U.S. dollar, keeps getting stronger against some of the local currencies. So things that you could buy at one rate before, you're now having to pay 20, 25%, 30, 35% more than you did 3 months ago.
Does the consumer, whether and you're both on the resi and the commercial side of business. Does the let's just do the luxury consumer that might be putting toys in their house? Do they hold their money in the local currency, or do they hold dollars, or do they hold both?
Both. And
They
they
hold
have
both.
accounts. They have accounts for both. And
So
people have
it's really their
accounts.
local currency
Yeah,
is
correct.
getting crushed by the strong dollar.
That is correct. That is
And
correct.
that's, I mean, I'm only a hobbyist, and that's putting it mildly with a capital or a lowercase h as a hobby. But in terms of macroeconomics, I find it fun and interesting. But from what I'm reading or consuming, I believe that this trend of a deflationary dollar or a strong U.S. dollar against foreign currencies, it seems like this is only going to accelerate or
Yeah.
continue for some time. I mean, this is
Well,
not going to end in the coming weeks.
you'd be surprised. In Brazil, Brazil has seen a change in the dollar, and the strength of the dollar in the last week or so. So
It
that's
was up at 5 reals for a dollar,
correct.
right?
Correct. And now it's coming back down little by little. And hopefully that'll continue to be the trend so that the Brazilian market in general, not just our industry, but in general can start up again soon. 'Cause it's been on hold. I see here Tomas Wing. Yeah, they've been 80 days in lockdown, and it's affecting everyone in
That's why
multiple.
Tomas is attending all my webinars
That's
and all
right.
my live sessions. Tomas has nothing else to do. Thank you, Tomas.
That's correct.
I hope for you and me, Tomas, that business gets back to normal. And I hope you remember us when that happens, because I'm sure we won't see as much of you.
It's gonna get back to normal. It'll be a different set of conditions, whereas people before, dealers in our industry, were going into houses wearing booties. Now it's gonna be booties, gloves, masks, in some cases respirators. I mean, it's gonna be a different landscape out there when everything starts opening back up. So we all have to get ready for all of this. because life has to continue. It's just going to continue in a different way.
Juan just answered my question. He says end users, I'm assuming this means throughout Central and South America. He says typically hold their savings in US dollars, but their local businesses run in their local currency. So obviously any currency fluctuations are going to directly affect them in that way.
That's correct.
Yeah,
that's correct. And you see that with sales, right? So when the dollar becomes strong and the local economies become weaker, then you see a hold off in purchases from dealers because nobody wants to buy more expensive than what they sold it for. So it's got different effects, and that's one of the things that's important when you look at dealers in the U.S. that are unaffected by currency exchanges, and they're unaffected by lockdowns at ports. You can place an order here in the States from a manufacturer. Let's say that manufacturer has limited resources at the warehouse because of this COVID thing. And let's say it ships 2 days after the normal shipping time. You'll still get it within 4 days when it ships. In Latin America, it's different. In Latin America, you have to place an order. The order needs to ship that manufacturer to your freight forwarder. The freight forwarder then has to consolidate, ship it to wherever it's going to in Latin America or the Caribbean, hoping that the local ports are open. And if the ports are open, hoping that the customs officials at the ports are working because they may be in lockdown too. So it's a totally different set of circumstances for some of the dealers that are in the Caribbean and Latin America, that they're unseen to the naked eye. And it affects business long term for them as well.
Here in the U.S., we are seeing in I think it's a fair statement. I mean, I'm talking to enough people most days of the week that I think I know this, but I'm not willing to say I know this. I think I know that there are, in many cases, on the upper end of the scale in terms of residential consumers, we're seeing an increase in demand for home tech. We're seeing, home networks, home entertainment, outdoor entertainment, seeing an increase in demand. I mean, there's a number of many companies I've talked to are seeing, peak levels of demand right now in the middle of this craziness. Are you seeing any of that in the Caribbean or your markets, or is it able to break through yet because people simply aren't allowed to work?
Well, I think number one, there's a lot of trends that are going to change in the industry altogether. Like you said, so home theaters are coming back. There was a period of time where the dedicated home theater kind of took a step back, and
I would have said it, pre-March, I would have said they were dead.
Yeah, correct. Because everyone was using, a space for multitasking. The living room was a home theater. The kitchen was part of the home theater. We just had a leader yesterday that wanted a 7.1 system, and when we asked him what he was using it for, 2 of those channels were in the kitchen, and so there's things that are happening that didn't happen before. I think home theaters, dedicated home theaters, I think are going to come back. I think you'll see an uptick in projector sales and projection screen sales. Outdoor audio is on its way back as well. I don't think it ever left. I think it's just going to be stronger. Yeah. Automation systems, I think, are going to come back as well. Automation systems for some time were kind of on their way down. I think they're going to tick back up.
What about voice? Do you think this triggers an increase in the desire for voice? The idea of touching things and passing germs versus voice commands?
Well, I think voice will make it. I think I've never really been a believer in voice because I have an accent. Most of the people that live in Miami have an accent. In Latin America, everyone's got an accent.
Wait. In my house, as you know, with Lutron, you and I were talking, I just put my Lutron shades in, and my son figured out how to plug his Google. He has a Google Nest touch panel at his.
I saw him working.
Did you see the video?
Room.
I posted a story on social media.
Working
he
the
did
dining
that
room.
100% by himself. I don't even know how he did it.
I don't know either, because he had 3 window treatments going up, and I've never been able to do that in my house.
With a single command, boom, he I don't know, he did it. He's 11. He figured it out.
That's right.
I was skeptical, because I was like, I was telling my wife, I was like, don't let him do this, because he's going to break something, and we just got it working. He's like, Dad, I got this. He's 11. Did I say this? Anyway, he went and configured it.
Yeah.
15, 20 minutes later, my wife is sending me, because I'm up here in the office, sending me a text video, because I'm on a Mac, so that shows up right on the Mac, which is pretty cool. So I saw the SMS, and there was a video of my son giving the Windows a command.
It's great. It's great. My son yesterday, he was working on a project for school that the project was basically on biomes, and the instructions were for him to do a presentation passing the pages and recording himself passing the pages. And I said, well, why don't I show you how to use Keynote? I'll show you how to scan it. So I taught him how to scan the pages. I taught him how to start it on Keynote. And by the end of the evening, he did the presentation himself. I just helped him on the technical side. But, kids these days are very, very good with computers and everything voice related. Going back to what you were saying, I think networks is going to be a key issue. In the U.S., I know there's a lot of integrators, especially the C4 guys that have had the brand that C4 acquired some time ago, and now that C4 SnapAV bought a C4. The Oversea brand, I know that all those integrators have had the opportunity to buy and sell network solutions. That's going to be huge going forward as well. Network's going to be big. Security, I think, is going to be big too. I know I'm touching a lot of spots, but these are things that I think are trends that people need to be on the up and up with.
There was a comment here from Juan Pablo, and he says, I think home entertainment and technology would have a peak in the upcoming months. Latin America is always delayed from the U.S. regarding trends and everything. So
I agree. There's a delay in Latin America for a lot of things. One of them was the COVID. The COVID didn't really arrive into Latin America until probably about 4 weeks after the U.S. That's why you're seeing the peaks now that you saw in U.S. cities about four weeks ago. So, and there's also a delay in the deployment of technology as well, for whatever reason. One of the reasons why we started Polaris was basically to give Latin America a more of an importance to some of the manufacturers. I was very surprised to see at CEDIA large manufacturers that simply didn't know the difference between Puerto Rico and Costa Rica, or that Puerto Rico was in the middle of the Caribbean and not part of Mexico. Right. You're laughing, but that was my same reaction. I'm going, I can't believe this guy's the president of this company, and he doesn't understand where any of these places are. So that's why we wanted to start a business like Polaris, only focused in Latin America, to give the Latin American dealer more opportunities for products, get the information out there quicker, so that the delayed response that we've traditionally seen in Latin America can be shortened a little bit.
Yeah, no, that makes tremendous sense. We have another comment here. Actually, let's see here. Matt was on the show just recent. Matt's logging in here from Dallas. He says, sorry he's late. No worries, Matt. You can always watch it on replay, buddy. But appreciate you joining us, and better late than never. And then Tomas has given us a little more feedback on voice. He says, we've done a few projects with Google Assistant. Is best one we've used for Spanish only speaking clients.
I agree.
Contact Josh AI, but no Spanish availability yet. I was laughing regarding my son programming it because my wife, we were just talking this morning about it. My wife has still a relatively strong accent. My son and I listen to, and it sounds normal to us, but when she tries talking to Google, it doesn't want to listen to anything. She's asking it, and she gets frustrated, and so now she'll have my son give the shade commands
So I think
to Google.
from all the assistants out there, so we have three in our home. We have Google, we have Alexa, and we have Siri with one of the home pods. I agree with Tomas that Google is the one that's most flexible of the three. The other two, Siri Siri and I have a communication problem, so we don't speak well. It reacts when I want it to react. In the middle of the night, it starts music in my room for no reason. So
Oh my God, I would have a heart attack if that
yeah,
happened.
exactly. But I do agree. Google is probably the most the best one for that.
So in terms of the way you've been supporting, Polaris has been supporting your dealers. You said you've been doing lots of webinars at
Yeah.
an elevated or escalated rate. What have you been
So
doing, and how well has attendance been, and how's that been working out?
so I'll tell you this: because we are used to distances. Because I mean, we're in Miami. Our office is in Miami, but we have an operation all the way down to Argentina. So we already had a platform for webinars that we use, which is GoToMeeting, which has always worked flawlessly for us. Our company is run on Google, so even though you see at polariscontrols.com as our domain, it's actually a Google platform. So we have Google Hangouts for that and Google Meet for that. We also have Zoom, a Zoom account for that as well. So since the last day I traveled was the 10th of March, I was coming back from Grand Cayman. By the 13th of March, we already had a plan to do webinars 3 times a week on different subjects. And that's what we've been doing. We do webinars on Mondays, Tuesdays, I'm sorry, on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at 11 a.m. every week on different subjects. So we've done Lutron, we've done Savant. Today we did Ice Cable, Lucifer Lighting, Screen Innovations, Digital Projection. We've done all sorts of webinars on all sorts of subjects too, not necessarily on brands that we're reps for. That's kept us in the loop with a lot of dealers. We've had webinars that we've had over 100 people participating as attendees in the webinars with over 80% attentiveness rate, which is huge. I mean,
Yeah.
we've been doing webinars for 3 years and we've never had more than 50 people on a webinar. Now we're seeing 100 people there. We've done webinars for 2 hours and there's still, 80 plus people on the webinar. We started a YouTube channel 3 years ago. And I'd say by the beginning of 2020, we may have had 25 videos there. Right now, we have over 75 videos there per webinar. So we'll do the webinars, we'll record them, we'll edit them, and then we'll upload them to YouTube. We started a podcast where we're interviewing people from the industry, and we release a podcast once a week.
What's the name of the podcast?
It's called Polaris Controls Interactivo. It's usually in Spanish. We've had English speaking guests. It's available on Spotify and on iTunes. So Polaris Controls Interactive, but with an O at the end to make it Spanish.
Of course.
And it's available on those two platforms, soon to be on Google Podcasts as well. So we've kept up, participated in a lot of trainings from our manufacturer partners so that we've elevated our own technical level more, which has been great for us. We started with a company called RF Venue. They make wireless transmission and reception systems for microphones and in-ear monitors for like concerts and churches. And we've learned so much from the RF Venue webinars regarding RF and communications and things like that. That's been great. So we've taken these 3 months. It's going to be 3 months in about a week or so, to really train ourselves, train the dealers that we do business with, and get more and more involved in the design side of projects than we were before. It's been a good time for us. It's been a difficult time for us to be indoors and not being able to see our friends, because a lot of our dealers are our friends. We developed relationships with them for the last 10, sometimes more years. So yeah, you'll see our website there. We're kind of working on, as that's one of the other things that we're doing. We're making our website, revamping it a little bit.
It's a good time to work on marketing,
Yep.
when things are a little bit quieter. I was gonna so this is the website, everyone, and if you're listening to the podcast, it is polariscontrols.com. And be forewarned, Ariel did say he's working on it, so if a link doesn't work, don't judge him by that. But I was gonna jump over here to Avitel, because you've also launched our Avitel. You've also launched this engineering business. Can you talk about how you're supporting your dealers through that business and or services?
Yes. So one of the things that we've seen in the last 10 years is a lack of tools for project presentation, in the areas that we work in. And those tools can be things like websites, things like presentation tools, things that what you do with One Firefly. So if I remember correctly, that's how you started. You started as an engineering-based firm and graduated to the marketing side of things.
That's entirely accurate. Yeah, I realized that I had to, in order for my engineering business to exist, I had to start building integrators' websites and doing their marketing.
Sure.
To enable them to present themselves in the right light and have the confidence to talk about why a design and engineering line item of labor exists and costs what it costs. Because it takes smart people with lots of experience working diligently to put lots of pieces and parts together.
That's correct.
In the right formulation in order to give you this beautiful outcome that you desire. And
that's right.
As you probably have seen, and I see a comment here, Avitel Americas rocks. Look at that. Thanks, Rodolfo. So many integrators do this stuff for free.
Correct.
Or they don't do it, and their projects suffer.
And that's a trend that we saw that we needed to correct, because a few things. Number one, a lot of AV stuff, let's call it that, gets put into a project after the project's been completed. More so in our region than it is here in the States. And that's an issue. The construction technique in Latin America is different than here. Here, it's like Alice in Wonderland. You have these walls that are drywall, and then you can go in and you can take out the entire wall and nothing happens. In Latin America, it's
that's
not
right.
Like that.
Yeah, poured concrete.
That's right. So things have to be planned for in advance. So we needed to provide the dealer with tools that they can use to present projects with solutions from the beginning, and not as an afterthought after the project is
because you need conduit in place.
That's correct. So we started a company called Avitel Americas. Avitel basically focuses on 3 client types. One is a dealer. So a dealer that needs help in developing specification submittals and proposals for projects that are presentable, that can be part of construction documentation for a project. Remember, I have a master's in construction management. That's what I studied. My wife has a master's in construction management. Manfredo and Bertie in Polaris Controls have masters in construction management. So we really come from the construction side. So if we can give the dealer a set of tools to help them present projects earlier in the construction phase, that's what Avitel America wants to do for them. We also offer the services to architectural and engineering firms that don't have the means or the expertise in the AV side of things and automation side of things to be hired as consultants as part of a project, so that the project can come out with specifications of control systems, of proper lighting and audio. And thirdly, we offer the services to end users, or large hotels that want to have a firm that specializes in that, to provide documentation services of things to develop scopes of work. So we're attacking three different things, three different sides of the business, just to get the project specified correctly from inception. So it's not an afterthought.
No,
So we've had to evolve as time has gone by.
Yeah, it sounds like you're inventing the necessary capabilities that are required for you to be successful in the markets you serve.
Us, and more importantly, the dealers. The dealers for us are key. We really fight for the dealers in the regions. We want to make sure that whoever's in country gets a fair shot at projects. I personally, I don't like integrators from other countries to go into a country and simply sell something and then leave, and then the end user is kind of left in the dark, and the local dealer has to come in. So we do everything we can to make sure that the dealer is best equipped to be able to perform a project in country locally and support it adequately.
Yeah, I don't see how that's not in the client's best interest to have a local
Correct.
integrator, designing, installing, servicing that customer for life, as opposed
Correct.
to some American integrator swooping into, X, Y, or Z country doing a project. And then what happens when the thing goes down on Friday night?
That's right.
How does that customer get serviced?
But you know what? Situations like this COVID bring to light what we're discussing now, because a situation like COVID, yes, you have your system working in your house, but what if it stops working? Then it's a guy in Miami that has to fly down to Aruba,
and he's not going to do it.
And he's not going to do it, and there's no flights, and the airport's closed. It's a whole different kind of thing. So the COVID is definitely going to help the local dealer explain better why their solution is more adequate than whatever.
They should be going. I'm assuming this is part of your strategy, just because I know you and I know the origins of your Lutron belief system around driving specifications through the design community. So I imagine your dealers should be going to architects, designers, and builders and presenting that position. You need a local company to design, install, and service this project.
That's right.
What if this pandemic comes back, or what if another one happens? Your customer is going to be high and dry.
Exactly. So we're providing the dealers with products through Polaris Controls. We've gathered a very good group of manufacturers in each of the four verticals that we have. That they're all very good companies. So we're providing the hardware, and we're providing also the design elements to it if they need it. A lot of dealers don't need it, but if they do need it, count on us as a group of people that are working side by side with you.
There's a comment, and then I'm going to close and get contact info here for everyone listening that might want to get in touch with you, Ariel.
Okay.
But Alfredo Pimentel.
Yeah, in Dominican Republic.
There he goes. Alfredo says, all right, you go ahead and read that for me, because I'm going to mess it up.
I have used Avitel services, 100% recommended, is what he's saying.
From Auto, how do you say his company name?
Automatizado in the Dominican Republic.
Automatizado.
So it's like automation, but in Spanish, automatizado, to be automated.
That's a beautiful endorsement.
Yes.
Ariel, I wish you and your team nothing but success here as you guys forge forward through this quarantine and We will get through this. You know
Oh,
that.
I know we will. We have to be optimists in this environment. I know that the circumstances are difficult for a lot of people, lockdowns, economies that are stuck, but we will make it out. We will be stronger. Um, our services collectively will be needed more in the future than they have been in the past. So we just need to use this time to prepare correctly for when those times come and be able to deploy quickly because it'll be an avalanche of work for everyone in this field. Thanks, Ron, for having me on your program. Last thing I want to say, we do have an Instagram page that you can follow us. One of the comments from Tomas Wing was that they call me Mr. Video Short. So we do video shorts that are a minute long on different things. It usually starts with a clap, and we try to make them fun. So listen in on us and let us know if we can help you. Thanks, Ron.
If they are logging into Instagram, what do they search for? They search for Polaris Controls.
Polaris Controls, just as it appears over here.
Right over there.
That's right.
Awesome. And Arielle, how can people get directly in touch with you?
So you can write to me at AEG, like Ariel E. Gutierrez at PolarisControls.com or info@PolarisControls.com. We're available to you 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Anything you need. If you're in jail and you need someone to talk to, call us.
What about bailing? Will you bail them out if they call you? Are you the guy to call?
I won't bail them out, but at least I'll have a well-dressed friend.
What more can you ask for?
Exactly.
Awesome. Arielle, it's been a pleasure, bud.
Thanks, Ron, and thanks for everything that you do for this industry with all the marketing that you do. These podcasts are really,
this is a podcast. It's live and a podcast. That's right. It's both.
So it's both. It's great. It's really interesting. I know you're in a lot of organizations with buying groups and things like that, and you've always been a very good friend to me and to the industry. So thank you very much.
No, that's I appreciate those kind words, and I do it because I love what I do, and I love helping people. And I've particularly this show in particular, I've had people reach out directly and say that just listening to guys like you, guys and gals, my guests, and just hearing different perspectives, how people are approaching life and business, their ups and downs, it's helpful. And so because I get the feedback that it's helpful, I keep doing it.
The sun always comes out. We'll get out of this and we'll all be better. You'll see. Thanks, Ron.
Amen. All right, gang. Well, there you have it. That was fun, man. I've reconnected with Arielle in recent years. He and I used to, going back many moons, we used to talk quite frequently, and then we fell out of touch a little bit. And in recent years, we've reconnected, and it's been a lot of fun. He's a mover and shaker, running a great organization, and he's really changing the game in the markets that he touches. So it was an honor to have Arielle on the show. And I appreciate everyone's comments. The comment have been alive and well today. So everybody that's been interacting and commenting, and Arielle and I will actually jump into the comments here post show and later today, and we'll let you guys all know our thoughts and answers to any questions and whatnot. That's always one of the fun parts of my day, is going after a show and reading the comments and interacting with you guys. So on that note, if you do not already, and I do have I see some of you are still here live with me. I do have a homework assignment. If you have not done so already, please go to your favorite podcasting listening environment, whether that be Apple. That's how I listen to mine. And don't forget to search up Automation Unplugged and follow the show, subscribe. And that way, maybe you can't watch the live show, but at least you can watch, or not watch, but you can listen to the recording. And that's it, gang. Today's Wednesday, May 27th, a little bit after 1:30, and I'm signing off, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks, everybody.